on defending a felony case in Arkansas. So if you're looking at this, you're being charged with a felony where a loved one is. And we just want to take some time with these videos to explain the steps that come up all the time and that will be applicable in your felony case. So what we want to start off with is the bond in the first appearance. And how does this work? Whenever a felony case starts, the police are going to make an arrest. There's two ways for you to get released while you're waiting on your case to go to trial. One is to get released on your own recognizance. So we call that OR. Sometimes they'll do that at the station, they'll OR, or you'll appear at the first appearance and the judge will OR you. That's the best thing to have happen. So what they're saying by that is, all right, we trust that you're going to come to court, so we're not going to require you to pay any money. Just make sure that you come to court and do that. And that's what we always argue for. And my first argument is always, hey, judge, client's taking this very seriously. They've hired private counsel. They can be OR'd. It'll depend on your history and the nature of the charges, if that's going to work or not. If you have a history of failure to appear, you're not going to get OR'd. And depending on how serious the charges are, if they're real serious, and we're probably not going to get OR'd. So then after that, we have what's called a bond. So how the bond is supposed to work is, all right, there's reason for the court to believe that you're not going to appear. You live out of state, you're rich and have a passport, whatever. The default is supposed to be no bond, and then they determine that a bond is required because of certain circumstances. In practice, that's not how the judges do it. In practice, if they're not going to OR, they have certain bond ranges for certain charges. The more serious the charge gets, the higher the bond gets. So there's two types of bonds. There's what's called a cash bond and what's called paper or a professional. So the cash is the easiest, exactly what it sounds like. So if the court says, all right, it's $1,000 cash bond, well, then somebody has to show up with $1,000. Once they bring that $1,000, you get to go home. Now, the other good thing about that is at the end of the day, once the case is over, you get that money back and it can be credited to any fines that resulted from the case. That's the easier part. Cash bonds are fairly common, but not all that much. By and large, the more common one is what's called the paper bond or the professional bond. That's the one where you need to get a bondsman for. How it works in a nutshell is the bondsman is going to charge you 10% plus $80 of whatever the bond amount is. So let's say that the court puts a $20,000 bond. Well, then you're going to have to, you yourself or a family member, go to the bondsman and probably give them $2,080. The bondsman is signing paperwork with the court saying, hey, this person's going to go to court. I guarantee it. And that if you take off and run on them, then the court can collect that whole $20,000 from the bondsman. So that's why if you find yourself in the situation, you've been arrested and you've had to bond out, the bondsman is the most important person in your life. They all have certain procedures that they have. They want you to check in every Friday or call in or show up, whatever it is. But you got to do everything that they say because basically they hold the keys to the jailhouse for you. Some bondsmen make different payment arrangements than others, but all in all, expect to pay 10% out of pocket to get yourself out while the case is pending. Now, sometimes what they will do is they'll arrest you and then you're held in jail until you have what's called a first appearance. In a first appearance, it's supposed to happen within 48 hours. Practice, this doesn't always happen. Let's say you get arrested Friday night, then Monday you're supposed to be in front of the judge, where the judge will read the charges against you and then set the bond. It doesn't always happen within 48 hours, and it's not always a set schedule of how it works. So I'll give you an example. Over in Lono, they do it really well. They do first appearance every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 o'clock. We know when you got arrested, we know when you'll have first appearance, or if we need to surrender, then we'll know how. Over in Pulaski County, it is just a complete cluster. I've got a bad habit of referring to the district courts as the junior varsity courts and then the circuit courts as the varsity courts. But when we're dealing with a felony, you're at the varsity court, but they could delegate the first appearance to the junior varsity court. And in Pulaski County, it could be any of them. So you could get arrested in Jacksonville and be sitting over in Pulaski County, but then you get first appearance over in Wolf Little Rock. And it's not on Court Connect, there's no schedule. And where this can be frustrating for family members is they'll call over to the jail and go, my brother's incarcerated, when is his first appearance? And they'll just flat out lie to you. They'll just tell you a court date and a time just to get you off the phone. We really don't know when that first appearance is going to happen. So that first appearance is the most confusing part. Getting that bond set is the most confusing part. And if bond was denied or if there was no bond, there is a motion we can file later on down the road to try to get the bond either set or reduced. And we have varying degrees of success on that. It just depends on your particular circumstances and the charges that you're facing. Your very first step after the arrest is your bond and your first appearance. The case will really get going after the next step, after the plea and arraignment. Thanks.